In the morning we built the city. In the afternoon walked through its streets. Evening saw us leaving. We wandered through our days as if they would never end. All of us imagined we had endless time to spend. We hardly saw the crossroads and small attention gave to landmarks on the journey from the cradle to the grave. Cradle to the grave.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Black Country History Hunter. Today I'm standing up on St Michael's Church, Brierley Hill, and we're going to be looking into what you asked for, Marsh and Baxter's. So Marsh and Baxter's is a firm in this area that dominated all around the hill I'm on now. Everywhere you looked was Marsh and Baxter's, from the park and the sports ground right through to Hall Street. Covered, massive area, all this side, huge factory. So we're going to be starting off with the very humble beginnings of the original Mr. ALFRED Marsh in 1861. He took over from E.J. Smart in 1869, but you could say the butcher started then in 1861 as a butcher shop up on High Street number 16. We're going to start there and work right through the history, right up until the 1970s. Before I start, I was going to tell you a little history about the hog or the pig. So it's been around for millions of years, obviously a hoofed animal. For the past 10,000 years, we've been domesticating the animal. It began its life in Iraq, in the Middle East, and it spread out throughout this European area over thousands of years. And in the past 10,000 years, it's been made into different kinds of pork, for bacon, for hams, whatever the reason is, they've been bred towards that. So there's many different breeds of pig now, but the one that they were actually using here was the large white, I believe. But as time went on during the 19th century, and this town grew into a bustling metropolis, they needed more pork because there was more people. So these butchers then started bringing in pork from everywhere to sell to the workmen, the miners, the factory workers, you know, all kinds of different trades at the time. So yeah, the need was there, so it grew. Mr. Smart in 1861 came at the right time, but he weren't so smart. He sold his business to Mr. Marsh, and the rest is history really, guys. So let's start the journey down at 16 High Street, where it began, where Mr. Smart began and Mr. Marsh took over, guys. Right guys, here we are. So now where I'm standing now is in Brierley Hill. Just behind me there, next to the church, a couple of metres down, was something called Chapel Street. Now Chapel Street ran down to what is the old Brierley Hill where the flats is. But basically guys, this is the first shop. So in 1861, a gentleman called E.J. Smart, he started a butcher's here. Now, as I've said before, there was a need for meat market, and there was a need for meat. And as time went on, and the town grew into a town, there weren't enough people with pigsties to feed the people that were living here. And these families would need feeding, and they couldn't all keep a pig. So what would happen is, there was suddenly a demand for pork meat in butchers such as this, and people to slaughter these pigs that were being grown, homegrown. So yeah, number 16 High Street, you can see it on the map here, clearly. So the pigs would have been brought in. I'll talk about where the pigs came from later. But basically they were brought into the back, slaughtered, and then used for meat. The bits would be used for certain products such as faggots and sausage. But E.J. Smart, he had the business, he started the business, he was doing well. So in 1869, Mr. Marsh bought the premises, 16 High Street, and he started to grow. Mr. Marsh himself was born in BILSTON, just here. His father wasn't a butcher, his father was a grocer. Now, 1850, he was born in Oxford Street, and you can still see his shop. Up until recently, the shop was there, it's gone now, but here's a photo of it in 2005, when it was still the premises. So this was a grocer's stroke coal dealers. In 1851 census, you can see here, he had no servants, so not doing too well. And Alfred was born then. And then a few years later, the 1861 census, you can see that they've got 2-3 servants by then. So actually, them doing well. So when his son left to become his own business, his own thing, he decided to become a butcher. Being the oldest son, he was actually the one that was going to take on some of the family wealth and do something with it. Alfred then became the family name, and we'll hear more about what happens with the name Alfred later. And he basically bought that business and he built it up, and it grew. He started doing other products. He was curing bacon. Later on, he was making sausages, and it grew to such a point that in around 1879, he moved premises, guys, and he moved premises up that way. So we're going to go up there now to his second shop, 111 High Street. Right, folks, so we're here at 111 High Street, Brierley Hill. So this beautiful building behind us with a beautiful yellow brick face, this is where Mr. Marsh moved in 1879. He'd already had a daughter. He married Clara shortly before this, his wife, and he'd had a daughter. Now, he was part of the Norman system, as in the first son took on the business, took on the wealth, and that way it didn't get dissipated like it did in Saxon times. So yeah, Mr. Marsh in 1879 had his first son, Alfred. Born Ernest Alfred Marsh, but when his father died later, he switched it to Alfred Ernest Marsh, which become one of the main components. We're going to be talking about Alfred later, Ernest Alfred. So senior Alfred came here in 1879 when his son was born, and I've got a picture here where you can actually see what it may have looked like back then. The business before he bought it in 1879 belonged to a Mrs. Miller. It was a grocer's, and what a beautiful front. We can see that he lived here for quite a while, Mr. Marsh. By now he's starting to extend out the back as well. He was buying a lot of land up, he had a lot of money. This guy was doing very well. You can see when he first moved in, there's an article here saying, come to our new shop premises, please come and buy our pork, come and buy our cured bacon. I believe the pork was brought in through the back way. So yeah, he was here for a few years. Eventually, he gained enough money to buy Dunsley Hall in Kinvers. This was a very rich man. And this was before the 19th century, before the turn of the last century. He basically turned this into a shop and a place to live. So in 1901 census, he's actually living in Dunsley Hall, but by 1911, he's back here again. So he was, wherever you are on a census is where you end up, you know. So he was there and then he was also here. So yeah, so this would have been the shop in the late 19th century. Right guys, so we're now on Hall Street, which was Hall Street. This little section here and around that corner used to be Hall Street, or Church Street in the very beginning. It ran right up to where the church is today. So a very early street. Now when Mr. Marsh had 111 and Alfred was born, he started to extend his business. Somewhere around here he had a factory next to a pub called the Red Cow, and he owned it. And as his money grew and his prosperity grew, he started to buy more land. One of the premises he bought was the High Urkel. We're going to go down there in a minute and have a look, but High Urkel was bought for a reason. So originally, the hogs were coming from a long way away. And see, from 1861, I believe, with Mr. Smart, the lairage and the station was at Brettle Lane. So the pigs would be brought in, Brettle Lane, on the cattle cart, something like this. They would pull up at Brettle Lane station. You can see some aerial footage here of the place. And yeah, they'd be pulled up and then they'd be driven up Brettle Lane, right up to Hall Street. So up Brettle Lane, up Bell Lane, into Hall Street, and then to the relevant places. So as the business grew, Mr. Marsh invested in land. One of the land he bought was High Arkle. This is important because later on that became the park and the sports grounds. Two things we're going to be talking about, so I'm not going to go into detail now. So let's head down now to the lairage, or to the station where the pigs came in. So the reason he bought the High Arkle station was, well, the reason he bought High Arkle is Brettle Lane was too far away. So basically what he did was he stopped using that as a place to bring the cattle in, and he bought, as you can see on the map, he bought this piece of land here, which had butts up to the Great Western Railway, and that way he could bring the pigs a little bit nearer to the factory, and he put it to High Urkel. Used to be a coal mine. You see, it was a coal mine. So he bought a lot of land. He wanted to buy all this land here. The pubs actually stopped him from buying most of it, but all this side was factories. You can see on this 1970 map. And yeah, absolutely amazing, guys. Let's head down now and have a look, see if we can see if any of the lairage is still there today, folks. Right, guys, here we are now, walking down the Northfield estate. So Mr. Southall, whose father actually bought the business a long time ago, bought the land off Mr. Marsh, or off the Falstock Company. Walking down now, and already in the distance there I can see one of the buildings. So this is where the animals were kept. So they'd be brought in on the train line. You can see the train line here from this drone footage. Like I said, 1915. You can see here an article referring to the buy-in of it. Now that's funny because there's a drain very similar to that. It's been covered over with tarmac in Hall Street. So it shows it's the same infrastructure. It dates it to 1915. It dates the one in Hall Street to 1915. Yeah, so here we are. I don't know if Mr. Southall's here today. He says he's not here today. So we'll have a look, see what we can see. Right, guys, here it is. Absolutely amazing. Everywhere I look, I can see drains, obviously for swilling the muck away. So this has all been turned around now, but some of these buildings have been kept. And this is one of them. So you can see how close we are to the railway there. There's the railway, and the sidings would have been down there where they brought the animals in. And there it is, in all its glory. The 1915 lairage, or stock building, where they'd literally keep the animals. Still got cages on the windows. This is where all the pork that came into the area came from, and in the latter part, well, through the war, a lot of the pork that went to the front lines came through here. So 1915 he bought all this land, including what became the sports ground, what we're going to talk about later as well. But sadly 2 years later he died. He lived an amazing life, you know, from everything he achieved, but he had a lot of tragedy as well. In the 1890s, he lost his wife, 1892, just before he bought Dunsley Hall, he lost his wife, Clara, who meant a lot to him. But by then, they'd already had plenty of children. So his firstborn was Alfred. He had another son called John. And a couple of months after Alfred died, John actually died himself. Now, the way John died was very tragic. There's a monument up on the top of the promenade, and it's got Palestine on there. And what happened was John went through a hell through the war. So John joined the Royal Worcestershire or Queen's Own Hussars, or the Worcestershire Yeomanry in the outbreak of war around 1914. He wanted to be an officer, but unfortunately it was too full at the time of officers. Everybody was joining up for World War I, so he ended up joining the ranks. But over time he worked his way up to second lieutenant until he became a lieutenant. And in the end, he was a lieutenant. He went to Gallipoli, and there's several beaches on Gallipoli. There was the Anzacs beach, and then you had a cove next door, which was called Solva. Now, Solva Cove or Solva Beach was a beach, not very big. Behind it, there was a salt bed, which was a lake, and it was dry. And they attacked, and the Worcestershire Yeomanry attacked as well. And he survived Gallipoli. He saw horror there. There were bloated bodies in the water. They'd been there months by the time they arrived, and it was not working. They could not push through the peninsula. The idea was they wanted to secure the Dardanelles. It couldn't be done. In the end, he was pulled off the beach, but before that happened, there was a battle across the Salt Lake, and here's a picture of the battle. And he actually took part in this battle, and he was so lucky to survive. He went across this field with these men, and he watched people being blown to bits all around him, and he survived that. Yes, so 1915 he managed to escape Gallipoli. 1916 he went to a battle at Katia. Now Katia was at the Suez Canal, right at the top, and the idea was they wanted to secure the Suez Canal. Now to do it, they had to go out to secure water first. So the idea was to send a detachment of men, a few hundred men, out to a watering post, which was called Ogratina. Now, our man John was one of these men, and he went out there, and it was a hellscape. So when they got there, they noticed that some men of the Turkish army, where they were fighting with the Germans, were seen. Now, they didn't know if they'd spotted this few hundred men at this watering hole, and they galloped off. Some of the men chased after the men that galloped off, and when they came up to where the men were going, they found 3,000 Turks, a whole army, heading towards Ogratina. Now, the man sat still, and they hoped, this was like Zulu stuff, this was a real last stand. They hoped, upon hope, that they'd miss him, but these 3,000 Turks didn't. They surrounded Ogratina with our John there. A lot of them were killed in a effort to hold the position, and John was captured along with many other men. There's a picture here of men who were captured on that battle, officers. They were taken to a place in Iraq called Yozgad. Yozgad was an infamous camp for being brutal, and he died in 1918, a few months after his dad, but the stress of his son being captured like that must have been awful. He died in 1918 of Spanish flu, called Spanish flu because it was reported in Spain, because at the time of the war there was so much censorship in newspapers you couldn't report anything. So the flu was being reported in Spain only, so they called it the Spanish flu, but actually the flu was everywhere and it killed more than the war. The flu killed more than the war, and he was one of them. My great uncle Jack Bedard, he's on the monument as well. We're going to go up there later and have a look at that. He's on that monument too, and actually he died in building the Burma Railway, so he was a hero as well, and he died of dysentery in the camps. Horrible, horrible conditions. So in 1914 there was a horrific fire in Marsh and Baxter's at Hall Street, and yeah, so you can see the article here for that. So he had a lot of tragedy. In 1906, Alfred Ernest had a child, and he died very young. The grave is up there, and he's given the king's grave. Now that man, that little boy was meant to inherit everything. That was like King Henry VIII's son. That was the inheritor, but he died sadly. So the next son couldn't be called Alfred again, so he was Edward. So yeah, so the pigs that came here, they'd have been basically driven up there, and you can see from this aerial view, there was a slight slope. They'd have to angle the slopes, because if it's too much of an angle, apparently cattle do not like being driven uphill. So yeah, so they were marched up past, up Church Lane and into the lairage up there. Now in 1915, they were proud of their lairage. Lairage is a place where an animal goes before it's slaughtered to calm it down, give it something to eat. They cut the water off, they cut the food off so many hours before it's slaughtered. It calms it down. Apparently a good butcher can tell if an animal's been killed under stress, and it should never happen like that, should it? So yeah, amazing. So now Mr. Marsh has passed on very sadly, and his son takes over. And wow, does he take over. In 1919, within a few years of taking over, he donates a huge parcel of land in 1919 to the people of Brierley Hill. He's thankful for everything they've done for him, all the work they've done for him, and he basically gives them a big parcel of land on Church Hill, which he's bought. Okay, so we're going to go up there now and talk about that, folks. So, here we are, Marsh and Baxter's Park. So like I said, the dad died. Not long after that, the son, he inherited a hell of a lot of money. The dad had accumulated a huge wealth. Now, the dad had done a lot for the town when it comes to jobs, security, and for the progress of the town in that sense. But he wasn't so much of a politician. Whereas this is where ALFRED Ernest, or ALFRED Jr., changed everything. He later on became a JP. He married a lady called Elsie Robinson. He was born in 1879, and he was born at 11 High Street, or 111 High Street, I believe. He later went on to live in 1911 at Greyfields, the other end of Kimber. So you had Dunsley Hall for his father, and he was at Greyfields Court, another beautiful big house the other side of Kimber. As well as, later on than that, he bought a house, Woodfield Court, or Woodfield House, in Wordsley. So yeah, there's the beautiful park. So as soon as he took on this wealth, he decided to use it for the good of the people and to thank the people for all the hard work they put into the company themselves. So he donated this piece of land which had been bought in order to gain access to the railway nearer than Brettle Lane, as we spoke about. We'll go down and look at the pig tunnel in a bit. But yeah, so the park was donated. I believe it was being used before that already as a little bit of a park. But he donated it officially in 1919. 1920, they got the paperwork. 1921, they had an opening ceremony. So the ceremony, you can see the article here, was absolutely phenomenal. They made it a flag day, and everybody came. All the schools had a day off. 2,500 school children came to this field on that day. So yeah, so that in 1921 they had this amazing ceremony. Mr. Marsh himself, Mr. Alfred Ernest Marsh, and his wife Elsie came. You can see the pictures from that article here. So there's Alfred and there's Elsie. And Elsie did the opening. She was presented with a big key, a big golden key for the day, and she gave a speech. And she thanked everybody for turning up, including the children. Now, during the ceremony, they sang a song. They sang Rule Britannia. Can you imagine 2,500 school children? They'd march through the town with flags from the school, and they'd march all through the town, right up there, right up onto the park, and there was a makeshift stand made, and the speeches were done. They weren't going to call it Marsh Park, but he didn't actually give any stipulation when he gave them the land. He said, do what you want with it. So the people, in thanks to him, called it Marsh's Park. Now, you could have said, call it Marsh and Baxter's Park, but by then, the Baxter had gone. I should have mentioned this earlier, but Mr. Baxter made a partner of Mr. Marsh in about 1912. But in 1918, Mr. Baxter died. Now, he had the Dale End factory, Mr. Baxter. So Marsh and Baxter's became Marsh and Baxter's in 1912 when Mr. Baxter joined the firm, became a partner. Sadly, he died in 1918, and the family of the Baxters didn't want to continue with the enterprise, so they sold their shares to Mr. Marsh. So it then became Mr. Marsh's only again, but he retained the name Marsh and Baxter because it had been trademarked and it was doing well. So yeah, so it was named Marsh Park after Ernest Marsh, or Alfred Ernest Marsh, A.E. Marsh, and yeah, it was a great success. So I'm going to put a little bit of drone footage on now, and I'm going to show you that song that was sung that day by them children. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I find that stuff really touching. So yeah, later on, 1926, they'd got enough money together for a bandstand. Hill and Smith, great company of the area, they were the people that came forward. Now apparently for the money that they gave to Hill and Smith, the money was not the best money. It was all they could afford. But because it was a personal thing, it said, because it was a local thing, Hill and Smith put extra effort into it, and they built the most amazing bandstand. Not many photos of that exist, but I can tell you this, there's a beautiful aerial photo here where you can see it. And not only that, my own Nana Osland, or my Grandad Joe's wife, lived round here with her dad. So the Oslands lived here. And she took these photos, and look at these photos. See, I've colorised them. So there's my nan, and there's the bandstand behind. You can see the bandstand there, beautifully made, beautifully made. And then in 1927, another nice man in the area donated a kids' park, which was put in just where I am now. There's an aerial photo where you can see the park in full. And then there's these pictures that my nan took, Nan Bedard, what a beautiful lady. She took these pictures, and these were took in the 1930s. So the park was relatively new then, and you can see clearly the slide there, you know, and other parts of the park. Just amazing photos. And she also had some photos taken up on the benches up there, which you can see here with her mom, again in the 30s. Just lovely pictures of the area. So in 1927 they had the park put in. During the war, this actually became a spotting place, because as you know up there's an absolutely amazing view if you could see through the trees. And they actually put a spotting place in there. So there was a station up there for men of the Home Guard, or the LDV, Local Defence Volunteers in the beginning, went on to become the Home Guard. They were literally up there spotting planes, looking towards bombing at Round Oak and Marsh and Baxter. Video on Round Oak's coming, guys, keep your eyes open for it. Here's a pig tunnel. So this was put in 1923, I believe, because in 1921, when the park was opened, there was people using the park, and the animals were being driven up here, along the side, and then up a new road, which was put in 1915. Now the problem was, when the park went in, suddenly you'd have a few thousand pigs, because they were putting 6,000 to 7,000 pigs sometimes through a week. A lot of pigs went through these walls, and often they'd go up when people were on the park, so it was a bit distressing. And so basically anybody on that park could see these pigs going to slaughter. So they built this at great cost. It's gone into folklore since 40s and 50s, and it's not very long. It was just to bypass the park really and stop the kids from seeing the animals on their way to slaughter. Right, walking down to the sports ground, I just thought I'd mention again, basically this is the route that they took with the pigs from Brettle Lane. You can imagine a long route down from the train station, what we spoke about earlier. Really long route for the pigs to come. So you can see why, as soon as possible when he could, Mr. Marsh acquired the land at High Urkel. It was very much needed. And yeah, so you can see there, sports, it's now Dudley Sports FC, but in the past it was made and built for Marsh and Baxter's. So yeah, you can see the shape of the pavilion there. And there's so many old photos of teams in front of it, you know, so many old photos. Seen a lot of action on here. They had a bowls club, they've still got a bowls club. They had a swimming pool originally, which is down by the factories where we've just been, where the pigs came in. You can see it here in the 1970s map, or 1960s map, and clearly you can see swimming pool disused by then. Right, here we are, the amazing High Urkel, or now the Marsh and Baxter Sports Club. All this land was acquired by Mr. Marsh Senior, and Mr. Marsh Junior gave it to the people for a sports club. So yeah, now it's it actually was part of the Dudley Sports FC, but now it's not that anymore. They must have moved on. So yeah, a beautiful pitch, and like I said, they had swimming, bowling, so many competitions. There was a big open day in 1927 when it opened. You can see here. You can see some of the competitions that were took on that day. It had an amazing cricket team that won many, many medals. We're going to be speaking to somebody whose granddad actually was in the football team and was captain or manager, and he's got medals and a beautiful photo, big photo to look at. Right guys, while we're talking about the sports ground, I've just popped into Weird and Wonderful, the great guys that let me look in the cellar. We've got Tim here, and Tim's granddad was actually a player for Marsh and Baxter during the 70s.
Yeah, in the 60s.
Yeah, in the 60s.
Yeah,
and he's got this amazing picture, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, that was my granddad,
Okay, I'll put it on the screen for you now, guys. The guy who's pointed out.
Harry Wesson.
Wow.
But I don't know anybody else.
If anybody knows, if you pause it, guys, if anybody knows anybody on this picture, let us know and I'll let Tim know.
But I think one of them could be this gentleman here.
Okay.
Brian Parks.
What a big old picture. A beautiful. She needs framing, really, guys. Look at that. So that is, what's his name? Brian Parks.
I think
He's the owner of the photo.
he could be a player,
Yes.
but I'm not sure.
And
But
also, you've got a medal, haven't you?
yeah, when he was, my granddad was trainer, and also
Wow.
he was,
Your granddad actually trained?
yeah,
Trained.
he was the manager as well,
Wow.
and there was that other picture like with when he got his suit on.
You got to be proud of that, ain't you?
Yeah, sound, yeah.
It's nice to see that pride.
Great, yeah.
Everybody out there's got these pictures of relatives, and so often they end up in the skip. But every now and again, you'll meet somebody that's enthusiastic about their family, and so you should be. And here's one, Tim. He's kept these medals in great condition. Unfortunately, something's missing
The
from
badge,
this one.
yeah, the badge
But
is missing.
Before he had them in his hands.
But that's 19.
Yeah.
The date on that.
19.
It's got the date on that. That was
And this is a little medal.
67.
I'll put a big picture up on the screen for you guys so you can see. 1967, he won a medal for what was it?
68, yeah, trainer, Marsh and
Trainer of
Baxter.
the Year.
Trainer, yeah, for Marsh and Baxter's, yeah.
Wow, so he was actually medalled for
look,
it.
Look at all the trophies. They won as a football team.
Look at all those trophies, guys. Absolutely phenomenal, Tim.
But if anybody knows, it'd be nice if we could
I
find.
will. And viewers, do your best. If you know anything, pop into Weird and Wonderful and let him know. Or give me a message, as you do anyway. And we'll get to the bottom of it. Tim, you're very proud, man. Thank you very much for showing us them, my sir.
You're welcome.
You're a good man.
You're welcome, Jamie.
Check out Weird and Wonderful. Great shot.
Thank you.
Right,
Thank you
on to the
very
next bit of history. Some beautiful drone footage here, guys. You can see the way, literally, before the trees were there. It's right next to the train line still. You can see that beautiful view they would have had playing football in the day. Absolutely amazing pitch. And again, from this angle, you can see in the distance the beautiful Brierley Hill itself. Big hill. The Marshes did so much for this area. You know, they need a statue, really. They need a statue. We need a statue of Mr. ALFRED Marsh. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So we're going to head back up to the town now and start looking at the later years of the factory. So we'll go through the death now quickly, actually, of Ernest. So Alfred Ernest Marsh, he basically served right up and just before the Second World War. So he went all through the First World War, serving in the company, and eventually became the manager, as he was the main son, the first son. And when he died in 1938. He left a hell of a lot of money again to his son Edward. Right, I'm just walking up now to the town again to look at the interwars and post-war Marsh and Baxter's. But before I do that, I'll just pay my respects really to the dead of the town that died for our chance to live, really. You know, they died to keep us free, and in many cases alive. There, J. Bedard is my great uncle, Jack Bedard. When I first saw that, I knew nothing about him, and I've learned since. My dad died very young, so he didn't have the opportunity to tell me, but I've found pictures of him since, and he was a very brave man indeed. And this monument went in obviously after the war. It was actually modelled on a local man, a round oak man, and yeah, himself a war hero. And here, very disrespectful. Oh, sorry folks. Oh man, that is awful. I'll put that in the bin later. God knows who's put that there. But they need putting up against the wall. Right, so it's back to business. There, they haven't given him any special mention, even though a lot of the money would have come from the Marshes, I believe, after the death of Marsh Senior. So just there, guys, if I can zoom in, you see J. Marsh. Now that is John, the son who died in Iraq. Very, very sad indeed. And yeah, sad to see a can of beer there. Beautiful flag there flying behind us. And before I move on to town now, quickly just want to pay my respects. But before I do that, I forgot to mention that after that fire in 1914, I believe that the fire was attended to by Dudley Fire Brigade, and Mr. Marsh actually commented on how well they'd done. And I think that's when Mr. Marsh decided to form his fire brigade. And a helmet actually came up for sale at an auction house not so long back, and here's a picture of that hat. And that's an amazing piece of Marsh and Baxter's history. But yeah, so these are the World War I heroes. I want to pay my respects to them. And when I've done that, I'll show you a little bit of drone footage, and I hope you have a minute silent with me. These guys give their lives so we could live the amazing life we live today. It's not always smelling of roses, life, but in general, it's a lot better off what these men did. I myself have had 6 people, friends, Grenadier Guards. I served myself Grenadier Guards 7 years, and 6 of my friends died in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. And yeah, so I'm gonna, even though they're not on this monument, this is World War One. Every time you see a monument like this, it should never be desecrated. These people died for you. They died for us. They died for us to have the freedoms we have today. And a lot of people take them freedoms for granted. So yeah, today I'm gonna pay my respects. Right guys, here we are, number 70. So during Alfred Ernest's reign as the main man, lots of new shops opened. One of the shops was here, number 70. There was one also just down the road there, did become Walter Smith's. We'll look at that in a minute. But this one in particular, it has got a blue plaque on, which is great news, but they should have one up at the 111 as well, to be quite honest. But yeah, before we carry on, 1927, there was actually an eclipse, and a lot of people, as you can see in this article, went down to Wales to watch it, but it was really overcast in Wales. But a lot of the people here, including some of the Marshes, went up on top of the water tower, the huge water tower that once was part of the factory, and they watched the eclipse from there, and they had a great time apparently. The factory was growing massive. The products, as we all know, were amazing. They had a war warrant by then. George V, around 1910, 1912, during the senior, Alfred Marsh Senior's life, gave a royal warrant, which was put onto the hams because he would have had the hams bought from Harrods. These hams by now were all around the world. They were famous, world famous. So were the other products. But there you go. So that's one of the places where they did trade from in the 50s. And we're going to go down there to the next place where they traded from. All behind us now was the factory, guys. Huge factory where all these products were made. And we're going to look at the tunnel in a minute as well. Here we are, guys, 94 High Street. One of the main shops in the later years of Marsh and Baxter's. It's very much his flagship shop. A lot of amazing products come out of here. It's pork pies, it's York hams. All of these products were sold here. When Edward took over in 38, when his father died, Alfred Ernest, he took over a business that was already thriving, but he pushed it that extra mile. He put a lot of hard work in, and he made it into the biggest butchers in the area. Absolutely amazing. Probably one of the best quality in the world. You know, these hams, I can say our hams, because I'm proud to be Black Country. Our hams went around the world. And now, it's all gone. Right guys, so we've cut from the town. We're here now with Mr. Ernie Corbett. He's 88 years old. He started his career at Marsh and Baxter's in 52, went right through to 78. Now he's going to tell us a little bit about what he can remember, and we're going to have a little chat with him. So yeah, I'll start by saying, Ernie, that you got your lung service, didn't you?
Yeah.
And how did you get that, pal? Look at that, guys. How amazing is that?
Well, that I started in 1952.
Wow.
I did the service, but we waited about 12 months later for the certificate. But there was one. I think they must have waited till there were so many, you know. But
Okay.
at the time, when I started, Marsh and Baxter's was employed a lot of young people,
Okay.
young girls and chaps, you know. Of course, a lot of the chaps, the service was broken through national service.
Ah.
But they kept your jobs open, and when you'd done your 2 years national service,
Yeah.
they couldn't refuse to take you.
And was that a national thing? Was that all over, or was that just Mr. Marsh's?
Now, this is when we were 18, if you passed your medical, it is your national service,
Which you did.
which I did, and then when you came out, they'd got to give you your job back,
Yes.
if you wanted to go back there, you know.
You still had the choice.
And that 2 years counted as part of your service.
Ah, so they didn't
You
knock it
know,
off your service.
They didn't knock it off. It
Brilliant.
counted as part of your service.
Saying that, you know, because Mr. Marsh himself gave out a few certificates, but there's a photo here of Walter Marsh giving one out to a lung service. 59 years this Mr. Bleeded, you see here, and he did 59 years, and Walter's passing out his certificate there. So these ceremonies were every so many years.
I would say so, yeah, there were so many, yeah.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And you started off as a cutter, is that right?
A cutter, yeah, there was two cutters. Well, what it was, there was obviously there was the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
That was the main thing.
Big men in there. And
Well, men and women, yeah.
Really?
I mean, the ladies, they wore Hessian, but still like sacks around them, you know,
Wow.
to protect him. And some wore clogs
wow,
and some wore Wellingtons.
that's
You know,
amazing.
really old fashioned. Well, anyway, that was the slaughterhouse. Then the same day they went on to a part called the cage,
Okay.
with the pigs were chopped into two and they were cooled down.
Yes.
Then they went up to a chill room.
Okay. I've heard of these rooms actually.
Yeah, they went up to a chill room and to chill off. Then they used to come down to the cutting house where
Yes.
I worked. There was two
Okay.
cutting houses.
So they come to you cold.
cold, yeah, and they come down from the chill room, and then they come up on a rail, and then we got conveyor belts, and you do I got a bandsaw for certain things, you know. I used to work on the bandsaw. Well, anyway, you could do, you know, like different parts out, like the collarbone, breastbone, lip bone.
That was classed as trimmings.
Yeah, trimmings. You cut all that off, get them ready, and then they go down the conveyor, down on another conveyor into the cellars,
Yes.
where they were piled up, you know, ready for
Whatever process.
whatever delivery got to be.
Yes.
Uh,
So the deliveries went from the cellars.
well, you worked. There was a part called the extension, and they used to sometimes on a Monday we used to have to go down there.
Yeah.
They give you an order, go down the cellars and get this and get that.
Wow.
And anyway, you do that, and it could be just the size of bacon what had been ordered, you know.
Absolutely phenomenal. And we actually got Ernie's letter here. I've kept it safe for you. He was kind enough to let me have a look at it earlier, or a few days ago. So we'll put it up on the screen for you now, but there you go. Mr. Ernest Ewart. I've never heard that name before,
No,
Ernie. Corbett, the above commenced employment with us. The company at 8th of May 1952, an apprentice, and he's now a skilled craftsman. So it's amazing how they, you know, even though Mr. Marsh went, I'm sure he told Falstock or FMC that he was going to carry on the quality of life for
That's
the
right.
staff. And did much change, Ernie, when they went?
Well, yeah, the company called the FMC took over,
Yes.
you know, and it did change. We messed about, and then later on, it was like a gradual close down.
Yes.
I mean, when you think about it, you got the slaughterhouse, the cutting houses.
Yes.
Then you got the cellars. You got the cookhouse where they made all the cooked meats and that.
Wow.
Then they got a boning room where they used to do the beef and all that.
Yes.
Got all that. You got that. And then, as I say, then you got the sausage room where all the girls worked.
Yes.
And then you got the pie room.
So a huge factory.
Yeah, and massive. The cellars were massive.
You've
The
got it.
carriage works, they used to call that.
Yes. I'll
And-
put a picture up, guys, of that.
Yeah, the carriage work. Well, what the cost was when we used to doing the orders, they were like big barrows. They were like that,
Yes.
2 big wheels and the legs. And you got to be careful on your boat because if you've got too much on and you lift it too far, it could tip up. And there was a place called the deck wheel. I used to go on there some Mondays, you know, just packing and you into cardboard boxes and sealing it up, you know.
Wow.
And then also load the vans from there.
Yeah. I don't know. But there's that one there. Is that the transport bay?
I know what you mean, yeah, but that's not the original building.
No,
The
that's-
library, because that's still there.
Yes. And the place where I'm trying to show you, I can't find it now, but there's a truck in there, and the van is a very old van.
Yeah.
But this is one of the vans from the 50s. Do you remember them?
Oh, I remember those, yeah. Quite well, yeah, I remember those.
Oh wow.
That's probably the ones I upload, you know, yeah.
How about that? So, and what was the staff like there, mate? Was it a very friendly place to work?
Well, yeah, it was. There's a lot of romances started there.
Really? And was yours one of them?
Well, I had 1 or 2 girlfriends from there, you know. Because they were all young people.
Of course.
They employed a lot of young people. There were older people, that you would be like you said, 59 years.
Yes.
They were the old school. But when we went in the 50s, we were a different breed altogether, you know.
And that was under Teddy, wasn't it, Edward?
Yeah.
So when Alfred Ernie's passed away in 1938, sadly, Edward was the oldest son then. It's like
Yeah.
the Norman system. He took over. Teddy, you called him, is that right?
Yeah.
put a picture up for him now. So what was Ted? Did you ever meet Teddy?
Well, yeah, but the main one when I worked there was Walter Marsh. Well, Walter used to arrive in a Rolls Royce
Wow.
at the offices, were just as you went into Hall Street.
Yes.
And there were steps leading up to the offices,
Yes.
and the commissioner, in uniform, would be waiting there to open the door for him to go in.
The commissioner.
Yeah,
Is that the ones at the front? Down Hall Street?
that's right. Now that is the entrance.
The middle one as well out there.
Yeah, that'd be the entrance. We'd go into work or come out, you know, at night.
Wow. Was there a clock in out and a clock
Oh,
in?
clocking in out, definitely, yeah.
And was you docked anything for being late or?
If you were late, you'd go in and say the bus didn't turn up or the bus was late.
Yes.
They'd phone the bus garage to make sure
Art still.
they'd let you in.
Wow.
Or other than that, they wouldn't let you in.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Love it.
But I mean, we used to start off past 6 or past 4. But when you left school, if you started there at 15,
Yes.
you couldn't start work till 7 o'clock.
Okay.
But when you got to 16, you started
Earlier.
at 6:30.
And that was your quality of life.
Yeah, and then the what they call the ball, we used to go at 9 o'clock.
And did the ball sound morning and afternoon?
Well, yeah, 9 o'clock, and that was your breakfast half hour.
Okay.
And we always used to go down the town, the young ones, to a cafe called Jack Brown's,
Jack Brown's. Okay.
which was renowned for the hamburgers. And they got a
Okay.
jukebox in. And anyway, at that time, it was just to see your white coats.
Wow.
That's before they stopped you going out in your white overalls. Anyway, that was to see your white coats. Then it went to, the dinner was 1 till 2. Then
Yeah.
again, the ball went.
Yeah.
And at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, you're supposed to be back in.
Yes.
And you finish at 4:30.
Wow.
And we worked Saturday mornings, I think it was till 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
We used to work on a Saturday.
Wow.
And you get meet different girls there. But I say there was a lot of young people employed there. Sometimes you go out, if you got no at my department, I go anything to do on a Monday, you might go up to the sausage room and help pack.
Yes.
Or on the deck, or to
Gotcha.
the extension, you know.
Well, I've got a picture here to show you actually of one of the 1960s. You might know some of the girls in it.
Yeah, that would probably be the baker room, I should say, because they weighed, yeah.
But there was so
I
many.
recognise that one. I don't know what the name was.
Do ya? There was that many people worked there, were there, Ernie?
See what it was? A lot of these ladies worked in the baking room.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
they worked part time. Now, the one who was supervisor
Yeah.
over that particular department lives in the third house as a mate of mine,
Oh wow.
Pam Glaze.
There's another picture here. So this is 1960 invitation for lung service. Now, do you recognise anybody on there?
That's Bondi Tooley.
Okay, I'll point him out on the film.
Now, his proper name was Holloway.
Mhm.
And if I remember right, he was a boxer.
Was he in Arden?
He already is. Nice bloke.
Hard knock. You
Uh,
find that with the boxers.
But I recognised these by sight, but I could. That's
You
like
couldn't
I
name
said.
them.
They were old
Yes.
when I started there.
That was the old school.
Yeah, those old school definitely.
Okay. And the wages, were they okay at the time in the 50s?
Yeah. Not too bad, Jamie. You know.
He was a good employer, wasn't he, by all
Oh
accounts?
yeah, I mean we've got a surgery and a nurse.
A nurse, I've heard of this
Got
nurse,
that,
yeah.
and you might have a medical every 12 months.
And there was a fire brigade, wasn't there?
Fire brigade, I can't remember right. I think this is for my time. I think they got their own fire engine. And I also
Really?
remember the ones that there was when the foot and mouth was about, you know, the cat.
Yes.
Well, anyway,
1962.
it was getting up to the Christmas time, and they got up an inspection,
Mhm.
and they wanted us to go in Christmas Eve to give the place a good clean down.
Ready.
Well, anyway, of course, everybody said no.
Okay.
I said Christmas now, and Mr. Sandiford, who was the director then, he says he's touching to go whether they close us down. And I always remember we were all in a meeting on the yard, as we called it.
Union meeting.
Well, no, our factory
Unofficial,
meeting,
yeah.
He says, I will pay if you'll come in. I will pay you out of my own pocket.
Oh, wow. What
keep
what
the fac-
dedication.
To keep the factory open.
For everybody's sake.
Well, no, not everybody went in. Well, I went
Well,
in.
you went in.
Yeah, but that's for me Christmas because we got a lot of this, what was it, Claudia in the
Oh,
water.
no.
Oh, that, when I come back on
Your
the
chest.
chest and that, you know.
Awful,
But
Ernie.
we went in, but we survived it.
But in 1962, I've got an article here that the foot and mouth struck in the country, and they had 2 cases in Marsh and Baxter's, what they thought were cases,
That's right.
and it was lime that had burnt the feet.
Yeah.
2 pigs, and they thought, oh, it's foot and mouth, so they I don't. You was probably there at the time, and then eventually they learned that it wasn't actually.
I know it was okay many years ago.
And
Yeah.
have you got any funny stories about the pigs running through the town, or
No, nothing like
nothing?
that.
You don't remember
you
much
know,
about
thing
that?
was, Jamie, you get the old stories like that. Oh, they
Yes.
tell you the history all the way through. Different generation.
I know.
We never took that much interest in the beginnings or anything.
Yes.
To us, it was jobs for the girls. And a lot of girls, they go straight from school, but I didn't.
Straight in.
Oh, I was 16 when I went there, you know.
Yes.
And so I went back there. Well, when I came out of the army, I thought I'll have a change, but I went after different jobs, and I was too old for some, but too young for others.
And you always had this opening at Marsh and
So
Baxter's.
I went back to Marsh and Baxter. You know, husband and wives and daughters.
Dead
and
man shoes.
all that.
Yeah.
They seem to follow in their parents' footsteps, you
Because
know.
it was a tradition in the area, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
well, they always used to say years ago, if you got a job at Marsh and Baxter's, you got a job for life.
I know.
Well, then the pie room was the first to close down, and then it just dwindled off, and it was like a ghost factory.
What do you think killed it? The imports?
Well, I don't know what did it really, you know. But
It had no need to shock, did it?
It was just a shock, you know.
Massive shock.
Yeah.
Like Round Oak, I'm going to do a video on Round Oak eventually, but this is what the people wanted first, so here it is. And it was such a shame it shut. What was your favourite products, Ernie? Tomato sausage, pork pie? Or did you not eat it? You'll tell me he's a vegetarian now.
No, I used to like a pork pie, yeah.
Like a bit of mustard.
I mean, we used to have a Christmas. They used to give us some like pork pie, the old traditional pork pie, and some sausage and that sort of thing, you know.
Amazing.
I mean, you got your 2 shops in Brierley Hill.
Yes, which is your era.
And I'll tell you where the driver used to live. You know that opposite the old butcher shop?
Yes.
There was the detached house.
The terracotta one.
Yeah, over the road. I got a detached house, well off the road, and it was. I think it's 2 houses down. Well, a driver, Mr. Kinsley, his name was. He used to be a driver for Marsh and Baxter's, and he'd always got his Marsh and Baxter's van parked on that corner.
That was his little bit.
You know, that was that.
Amazing, Ernie. Absolutely amazing. So you enjoyed your time there?
Oh
in general?
yeah, you know,
You did.
I mean,
Happy times.
well, I think when I started up till I don't know, young life, up till like you say you got married, it was a different thing, you know. You sort of
Free man.
you
A soldier as well.
chatting girls up and all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, I don't thinking about it. I mean, I still. Well, I mean, anybody. I suppose there is some younger than I am, you know. Because I mean, what was I? I was 40. About 43.
Yeah.
When it
shut.
closed down, yeah.
So, do you look back fondly at the times at Marsh and
yeah.
Baxter's?
More fondly than the place I
Went to.
more fondly than the
Went
place
to.
I ended up at.
Ernie, I think that's amazing, mate. Thank you for speaking to me.
You're welcome.
And we'll put it there, and the video will be out soon. So you're an absolute gentleman. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ernie Corbett, folks. So yeah, there you go. It's now Lee Eccles, or was Lee Eccles. Beautiful red brick terracotta above. Was a grocer before that. And now it's just an empty butcher shop. But all those lovely wares would have been on the front there, all its different, the chitlins, all the different products it did. But this specially did Marsh and Baxter's, and it would be hand in glove with the huge factory, guys. Look, 1960s map. You can see how big the factory was in the end. All of Hall Street, you know, all this nostalgia. We look through books and we can't get a feel for it, can we? Can, but it's, I wish I was born in 1910. You know, I'd have missed World War I, I'd have had a go in World War II, and then I'd have been able to see the heyday of Brierley Hill, you know, in all its glory. It's still a beautiful town, I ain't going to deny that, you know, but the modernisation programme in many ways has took a lot of amazing buildings down, as none of us disagree on that. They've basically took down some amazing buildings and built some monsters, but yeah, they could have easily fixed these buildings. But yeah, it's done now. Let's try and keep what we have got, folks. So let's head down to the tunnel. I know you've all been waiting for the tunnels, haven't you? Head down to the Marsh and Baxter's tunnel and speak about that on the way down Mill Street, folks. Guys, so the bit that a lot of people are waiting for, the tunnel. So basically there's an article here, guys, just before Alfred Ernest Marsh died, where he's employed for the past 12 years an American engineer. Now he's wanted this American engineer to dig a tunnel from here where the water was coming in. There was an argument between the Earl and Mr. Marsh in the 20s about the water being used without permission, but they come to a contract. So the water was being pumped out the big water pump there, right underneath towards the moor centre, and the tunnel run for 600 metres, 600 feet, sorry, and it was designed to carry steam and water around the factory, and it started here and went down. Now I believe they extended it down to the canal for the reason of A, getting rid of water, and B, maybe to get rid of the dirt onto the canal. There's a photo here of the deep shelter, and that photo shows some workmen standing across it to get some idea of the size. And then there's this photo what I found, which was unknown, and I think until recently, that was took at the time in '38 when the reporter of the newspaper went down and wrote this article. Is people ask, and people have said, commented, that behind Little Cottage Street there was an entrance. Now there's every chance there was, but looking at the line of it, I think more so it was by the Deluxe Centre, where the Deluxe Centre is now. A man has told me actually online on Facebook, wow, look at that beautiful mist. He's told me online, look at that, what a scene, you know, time travelling at its best, apart from the graffiti. Yeah, so he told me that behind the Deluxe, behind the billboard there's going to be a manhole. I looked for it for many days, couldn't find it. But he said when he was about in the 70s, before that Deluxe Centre was built, there was a manhole there that went about 15 feet deep into that deep tunnel. So now I'm just going to gain access and show you what I mean. Now I believe this is the entrance that was used to get rid of the soil. There was a house here though in the 40s, and some say that there was like a wharf there. Well, I've seen the wharf, and the wharf was covered to put this shelter in for the person that lived there. But I also believe it was used as another exit for the deep shelter. I believe that. So let's have a look. So there on that, nearly fell over. Let's go in. Wow, wow. Okay, so we've got a tunnel that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 metres in, carries on down, it looks to me, and it's raining in pretty bad, if it's possible to carry on. I don't know, it may possibly open up eventually to the deep tunnel. You can see where the pipes would have come in, which makes me think that it actually connected up there. There's a water pipe. So yeah, there you go. We believe that was once the entrance to the deep tunnel. Wow. Well, an entrance, an auxiliary entrance, a back entrance. So yeah, there you go, folks. 1938 around it was put in for the war. Originally it was meant to be for pipe work. Look at that pulley there, guys. So this would have been on a long line on a square bar, or a round bar, but square there, and it would have span, and a band would have come off that, and that would have been for a system of pulleys, or sorry, not a system of pulleys. You know, you get the workshops that run off one steam engine, and you have the bar running across the top and all the machines run off belts. It would have been a pulley like that. But yeah, so often them sort of things were coming out the factories by the ton, so they were reusing them for things like that to hold buildings together. It's a good thing to use them for. Well, that's it then, guys. That could possibly be the deep tunnel escape entrance, something along those lines, or where they took the soil out. We're going to end here. What not better place to end than where we all end, and that's the graveyard. So before I do my end speech, remember earlier I mentioned Alfred Howard Marsh. He was born in 1906. He should have inherited it all, but he died the same year he was born, 1906. Very sad. That was going to be the king of Marsh and Baxter's, and he never got to live that life. Very sad when anybody dies, but when it's a child, it's extremely sad. And here, all the Marshes were buried here. A.E. Marsh had this new tomb put in, but Alfred had this built for Clara, and you can see also John was put in here. And there's the emblem, the special emblem of the yeomanry, or the Worcestershire yeomanry, where he went through the amazing. And he's buried in the, it says here, Armenian churchyard. So it's actually in Iraq, and there's a picture of it here. But yeah, and there we go, there's Clara at the top, the first to be buried in here. And then Alfred Marsh. We spoke about Walter, his brother, in town, and all the family are on here as well. So there, some of them we haven't spoke about. Harry there, 1873, one of the brothers, 1932. There's, I believe, Ernest, which it was made for, this beautiful cross. So yeah, beautiful. And there's Edward Ernest Marsh, and that was the man that was took over, died in 1992, so he was the man that we were speaking about earlier in town, the one that took the firm to its heights. But building on what they'd already built on, this amazing area looking over the factory that once belonged to them. But yeah, we owe so much to this family, and absolutely phenomenal what they've done for this area with their amazing pork products. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Absolutely amazing day. Really enjoyed filming it. We're going to end it here next to the amazing family that did so much from Brierley Hill, ran through from 1879 right through till 1978, almost making the centenary. But yeah, so sad that it had to go. Like we said earlier, you know, did it have to go? Either way, it's gone now, guys, and here we are. Thank you so much for everything you've done. If you can hear me up there, thank you for everything you've done. And I hope you enjoyed the Marsh and Baxter's video. Always love doing this stuff, man. It's getting a bit cold now, the sun's dropping. Thank you, guys. Love it, love it, love it. See you on the next one.